I came to my daughter's city to say goodbye. 2 months to live. One last look at her face, but instead of burying myself, I uncovered the truth that destroyed the man she married. They told me I had 2 months to live. The doctor said it calmly, the way people say things when they've repeated them so many times that the words lose weight. His mouth kept moving, explaining options, treatments, percentages, but I stopped hearing him after that sentence. 2 months, maybe 3 if my body decided to cooperate. I stared at a faded poster on the wall behind him. Something about early detection, smiling faces, hopeful colors, lies mostly. What I felt surprised me. I wasn't afraid, not of dying. What scared me was the thought of leaving this world without seeing my daughter one last time. Maya. The name echoed in my head louder than the doctor's voice. My little girl, the same child who used to sit on my shoulders at the county fair, gripping my hair and laughing like the world could never touch her. The same girl who stopped calling me 3 years ago. 3 years of silence. 3 years of replaying our last conversation in my head, every night, wondering which sentence had finally broken us. "Pops, you don't get it," she said. "You chose work over us. You couldn't even come to my wedding. Julian gave me everything you never could." And then the one sentence I still felt in my ribs like a knife. "You couldn't even save Mom." That was where the line went dead. I folded the diagnosis paper and put it in my jacket pocket. I didn't need to read it again. I already knew how this ended. I'd seen men on the rigs cough blood into snow and pretend it was nothing. I'd watched strong bodies shrink into something unrecognizable. I walked out of the hospital alone. That same evening, I booked a flight to Atlanta. I didn't call ahead. I didn't text. I didn't even know if her number still worked. I wasn't going there to beg forgiveness or explain myself. I wasn't going there to reopen old wounds. I just wanted to see her, from a distance if I had to. Just one look, one proof that she was happy, that the life she chose was worth losing her father over. That would be enough for me to die in peace. The plane shook slightly as it cut through thick gray clouds. Turbulence. The flight attendant smiled and said it was normal. I caught my plastic cup of water before it tipped over, my reflexes still sharp despite everything. I'd spent 15 years working rotating shifts on oil rigs in Alaska. Cold that froze bone, winds that tried to throw you into the ocean, bosses yelling from warm offices hundreds of miles away. Fear had never been my problem. But that day my hands trembled, not because of the plane, because of what waited for me on the ground. In my jacket pocket, the folded paper felt heavier than it should have. 2 months, maybe 3. Enough time to say goodbye. Not enough time to fix anything. I thought about Maya at 5 years old, jam smeared on her cheeks, laughing so hard the neighbors complained. Maya at 10, dressed in black, at her mother's funeral, holding my hand and refusing to cry because I'd told her we had to be strong. Maya at 18, holding her diploma, eyes bright with plans bigger than our small town. And then Maya at 25, a single photograph in the mail, white dress, expensive smile, a man I didn't know standing beside her. "I got married, his name is Julian. Why didn't you come?" I hadn't come because I was in a hospital bed with tubes in my arms after a heart attack, because she'd sent the invitation 3 days before the wedding, because life had trained me to always be late, or maybe because she hadn't really wanted me there. That thought hurt more than the heart attack ever did. The clouds thinned. Atlanta appeared below, highways like veins, buildings like steel bones, lives moving fast without me. I turned my phone back on after the flight. Notifications flooded in, and then the phone rang. Unknown number, Atlanta area code. I almost ignored it. Probably spam. But something made me answer. "Hello?" The woman's voice was low, tense. "Is this Elias Vane?" "Yes. I'm a nurse at Atlanta General. You're Maya Sterling's father." My heart stumbled. "Yes. What happened? Is she okay?" A pause, too long. "You need to come to the hospital immediately, and please don't tell her husband." The world tilted. "What do you mean, don't tell her husband? Is my daughter alive?" "She's alive, for now. Please come." The line went dead. I sat there staring at the black screen, feeling something cold and sharp settle in my chest. I hadn't come to Atlanta to save anyone. I'd come to die, but whatever waited for me at that hospital, it wasn't what I'd planned. I took a cab straight from the airport. Atlanta passed by the window, unfamiliar and indifferent. New buildings, new faces, a city that had erased me without effort. The cab stopped in front of Atlanta General. I stood outside for a moment, breathing in cold air, steadying myself. Inside, the hospital was chaos. Phones ringing, people crying, machines beeping, lives hanging by threads. Third floor, intensive care. The heavy doors opened, and I saw her immediately. The nurse, Vera. She didn't waste time. "Before you see her, you need to know something," she said quietly. She told me about the accident, officially, and then she told me the truth. Multiple injuries, internal bleeding, bruises that didn't match the story. Hospital visits before this one. A husband who came once, stayed 5 minutes, and disappeared. She was afraid, Vera said, not of the accident, of him. The word hit me like a hammer. Him, her husband. The man who'd given her everything. My legs carried me forward before my mind could catch up. The door opened, and I saw my daughter. Nothing prepares you for seeing your child broken. Tubes, wires, bruises dark as fingerprints around her neck. Her face pale, almost gray. My Maya. I sat beside her and took her hand. It was cold, too light. I remembered holding that same hand in a delivery room 30 years ago, crying because I'd never loved anything so fiercely. I cried again, silently, because rage had started rising behind the grief, a slow, controlled fire. Vera stood behind me. She kept saying one word when she was brought in. She said, "What word?" "Daddy." That was when something inside me snapped into place. I wasn't here to say goodbye anymore. I was here because someone had hurt my daughter. And I still had 2 months, maybe 3. Enough time. I asked for her phone. Vera hesitated, then brought me a plastic bag with her belongings. The screen was cracked, battery low. The gallery opened. Smiles, vacations, luxury, lies. Then the videos. I pressed play. I watched a man laugh. I watched my daughter cry. I watched her forced to say she'd fallen on her own. I didn't shake. I didn't scream. I memorized every frame. Then I made one call. A number I hadn't dialed in 17 years. When the voice answered, deep and familiar, I said one sentence. "It's Elias. I need you." The pause lasted only a second. I've been waiting for that call. I didn't hang up after that call. I just stood there in the hospital hallway, staring at the cracked screen of my daughter's phone, replaying the video in my head again and again. Every laugh, every forced word, every second of fear in her eyes. I had seen violence before. On the rigs, in bars, in places where men believed strength came from fists and silence. But this was different. This was cruelty wrapped in entitlement. I slipped the phone into my jacket pocket and looked up to find Vera watching me. She didn't ask what I'd seen. She didn't need to. She'd been doing this job long enough to recognize the moment a man crosses a line inside himself. "What are you going to do?" she asked quietly. "Nothing," I said. It wasn't a lie. Not exactly. I wasn't going to hit anyone. I wasn't going to storm mansions or threaten people with guns like I might have once, years ago, before life taught me restraint. I was going to let the truth breathe. And truth, when it finally gets air, does far more damage than violence ever could. I sat in the hospital cafeteria for 2 hours without touching the coffee in front of me. The phone started vibrating 20 minutes after that call. Unknown numbers, Atlanta area codes, one after another. I let them ring. I wasn't ready yet. I needed to be calm. I needed to be precise. When you've worked dangerous jobs long enough, you learn something important. Panic kills. Not the danger itself, but rushing into it without thinking. Finally, I answered. "This is Elias Vane." There was a pause, then a man's voice. Controlled. Professional. "My name is Andre. I'm an investigative journalist. We received materials connected to the Sterling family. Your name was listed as a contact. Ask your question." Another pause. He wasn't used to people not playing along. "Is it true your daughter was repeatedly hospitalized due to domestic violence?" "Yes." Is it true her husband forced her to lie about her injuries? Yes. Do you have proof? I closed my eyes. Yes. That was all it took. Once the first domino falls, the rest don't need encouragement. By evening, the city felt different. Phones rang everywhere. Conversations hushed when I walked past. People whispered my daughter's name like it carried weight. Vera sat next to me again, holding her own phone, eyes wide. They're talking about it on the news, she said. I didn't need to look. I already knew. When truth starts moving, it doesn't ask permission. I went back to Maya's room late that night. She hadn't woken up. Machines hummed. Monitors blinked. Her chest rose and fell in shallow rhythm. I sat beside her and spoke softly, knowing she couldn't hear me. I'm sorry I wasn't here sooner. I'm sorry I let the distance grow. I should have come the moment you stopped calling. I swallowed hard. But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving. My phone vibrated again. This time, it wasn't a journalist. It was Marcus. You sure about this, Elias? He asked. Once this moves, it doesn't stop. That's the point. A low chuckle on the other end. Not amusement, respect. Good, because they're already scrambling. Your son-in-law's father is making calls. A lot of calls. Let him. You understand what kind of people you're going against? I understand exactly what kind. Marcus exhaled slowly. Then stay close to your daughter. I'll handle the rest. I slept in a chair that night. Not really slept. Drifted. Woke at every sound. Sometime before dawn, I felt a hand squeeze mine. Weak. Real. Maya, I whispered. Her eyes fluttered open just enough to find my face. Daddy? She breathed. I'm here. Tears slid down her temples into the pillow. I was scared, she whispered. I know. He said no one would believe me. I leaned closer. They believe you now. She fell asleep again, still holding my hand. I didn't let go. By morning, the Sterling name was everywhere. Financial investigations, hidden accounts, kickbacks, shell companies. A family that had lived untouchable suddenly found itself exposed to daylight, and daylight is brutal. Vera showed me her phone again. Silas Sterling detained for questioning. I felt no joy, no triumph, just inevitability. When systems rot long enough, collapse isn't dramatic, it's overdue. Around noon, my phone rang again. Unknown number. This is Assistant District Attorney Martinez. We'd like your statement. I gave it. Facts only. Dates, injuries, hospital visits, the video. No emotion. Emotion muddies water. Facts drown lies. That evening, Julian Sterling finally appeared. Not at my daughter's bedside. At the hospital entrance, shouting. Security stopped him before he reached the elevator. I watched from a distance as he argued, demanded, threatened. A man who had never been told no, discovering that no existed. When he saw me, his face changed. Confusion first, then recognition, then fear. He stepped toward me. I stepped in front of Maya's room. You don't get to come near her, I said. Who the hell are you? He snapped. I'm her father. His mouth opened, closed. He laughed nervously. This is a misunderstanding. You don't know what she's like. She exaggerates. I looked him in the eye. I've seen the video. The color drained from his face. He tried bargaining. Money, property, silence. He didn't understand. Men like him never do. When you've lived believing everything has a price, you panic when you meet someone who doesn't need anything from you. I have nothing left to lose, I told him calmly. You do. Security took him away. He screamed my daughter's name. She didn't react. That silence was louder than any scream. That night I stood outside the hospital, breathing cold air, coughing harder than before. Cancer reminding me time was still ticking. But for the first time since the diagnosis, I didn't feel weak. I felt necessary. The city turned on Julian faster than I expected. Power only looks solid from a distance. Up close, it's held together by favors, silence, and fear. Break one of those, and everything else starts cracking. By the third day, no one was returning his calls. The mansion in Buckhead went quiet. The parties stopped. The models disappeared. The champagne dried up. What remained was a man alone with the sound of his own breathing and the echo of every cruel thing he had ever done. I knew because he came back, not drunk this time, not loud, desperate. I was sitting beside Maya when the door opened slowly. She was awake, pale but conscious, staring at the window like she was afraid to blink. The nurse had just left when I felt the air change. I turned. Julian stood in the doorway. No arrogance, no smile. Just a man whose world had collapsed and who didn't know how to exist without it. Maya saw him and froze. Her heart monitor jumped. Her fingers tightened around the sheets. I stood up and stepped between them without thinking. "You can't be here. I just want to talk," he said. His voice cracked. "Please." I didn't raise my voice. "You have until security arrives." He nodded quickly, like a child granted a few seconds longer before punishment. He dropped to his knees. Right there. Hospital floor. Expensive suit creasing under him. "I'll do anything," he said. "I swear. Therapy, rehab, divorce. I'll give her everything." I felt something unexpected. Not anger, exhaustion. "You still don't get it," I said quietly. He looked up at me, tears streaming, face red and swollen. "I love her," he whispered. "No," I said. "You love control. Love doesn't leave fingerprints on a throat." His mouth opened, but no sound came out. I looked down at him and felt nothing. Not hatred, not satisfaction, just clarity. "I came here to say goodbye to my daughter," I continued. "I was supposed to die quietly. You took that from me." Security arrived before he could speak again. They lifted him up, cuffed him, and walked him out while cameras flashed from the hallway. Maya turned her face to the wall. That was the last time she ever looked at him. The legal machine moved fast after that. Once attention locked in, even the powerful couldn't hide. Julian was charged, his father arrested, accounts frozen, properties seized. Every secret he'd relied on to protect him became evidence. I testified. Once. That was enough. Maya gave her statement on video. Her voice shook, but she spoke. She told the truth. And truth, once spoken aloud, has weight. Weeks passed. Maya healed slowly. Bruises faded. Scars remained. So did nightmares. Some nights she woke screaming, gasping for air, hands clawing at invisible threats. I held her until her breathing slowed. "I thought I was weak," she said once, tears soaking my shirt. "I thought something was wrong with me." "There was nothing wrong with you," I told her. "There was something wrong with him." She nodded. Healing isn't dramatic. It's quiet, repetitive, painful, but it works. One morning she looked at me and asked the question I'd been dreading. "Daddy, you said something about cancer." I didn't lie. "I don't have much time." "How much?" "Months." She cried like she hadn't cried since she was 10. "I just got you back." I kissed her forehead. "You didn't lose me," I said. "You found me." We left Atlanta the day she was discharged. No press, no statements, no looking back. On the plane, she held my hand the entire flight. When we landed in Savannah, the air smelled like water and earth and home. She slept most of the drive. For the first time in years, she was safe. Life slowed. And in that quiet, something unexpected happened. Hope. One evening, she stood on the porch, staring at the fireflies over the marsh and said softly, "Daddy, I'm pregnant." I sat down, listened, didn't panic. I took her hands. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know," she whispered, "but I'm not afraid anymore." "That's enough for now." She kept the baby, and I lived long enough to hold him. I didn't get 2 months, I got 14. 14 months of watching my daughter smile again. 14 months of rocking my grandson to sleep. 14 months of knowing that one call, one choice, one act of love can change everything. I knew the end was coming long before anyone else said it out loud. Cancer doesn't rush at the finish line. It circles you first, tests your strength, takes something small, then something bigger, until you realize you've been negotiating with time instead of living inside it. By the time the pain settled into my bones, I had already made peace with dying. What I hadn't expected was how alive I would feel before it happened. Maya moved us into a small house near the water. Nothing fancy. White walls, wooden floors that creaked at night, a porch that caught the sunset just right. Every morning, I woke to the sound of birds and my grandson crying from the next room. That sound became my favorite thing in the world. I named him Eli, not after me, but after endurance, because that's what he represented. Some days were good. Some days I couldn't get out of bed. On the bad days, Maya sat beside me and read aloud. Letters from strangers, messages from women who had watched the trial, and finally found the courage to leave their own prisons. "You saved my life," one letter said. "I didn't. I just showed up. That's the part no one talks about. You don't need to be powerful to change something. You need to be present." Julian was sentenced in the fall. I didn't attend. I didn't need to see him smaller, quieter, stripped of the name that once protected him. He had already lost, not because of prison, but because Maya no longer carried him inside her fear. That was his real punishment. The day I started writing letters, I knew I was close. One for Maya, one for Eli, one for the man I used to be. The younger version who thought working harder would fix everything. I told him he was wrong. Love doesn't wait. Love arrives. My body failed faster after that. Breathing became work. Walking became memory. But my mind stayed clear, and that mattered. One night, Maya climbed into bed beside me like she used to when she was little. "I'm scared," she whispered. "So am I said honestly. "But not of dying." She looked at me. "Then what?" "Of you thinking this was your fault." Her tears soaked my shoulder. "I should have called you sooner," she said. I lifted her chin gently. "You called when you were ready to live. That's all that ever matters." The last morning came quietly. No dramatic alarms. No rush. Just light through the window and the sound of the marsh breathing. Maya placed Eli in my arms. He wrapped his tiny fingers around mine. Strong grip. I laughed. "He's going to be stubborn," I said. She smiled through tears. "Like you." I felt the weight lift slowly. Not pain leaving. Fear. I had done what I came to do. I had seen my daughter safe. I had broken the silence. I had left something better than I found. Before my eyes closed, I said one last thing. "Promise me." "What?" "Promise me you'll never shrink yourself again to survive someone else's weakness." She nodded. "I promise." That was enough. If you're hearing this story now, let me say something to you. If someone you love is silent, check on them. If you're hurting, speak. If you think it's too late, it isn't. I came to say goodbye. I stayed to change everything. And if I could do that with only borrowed time, so can you.